Hey everyone, welcome to the BME Live podcast, Ep.8. Today we have a very special guest, Sahil, a biomedical engineer at Medtronic. And your hosts today are Maritzel, or sorry, Mary, I don't know why I said her full name, Mary Martinez, and yours truly, Adrian, and I have Sahil's name right here. And so, Sahil, thank you so much we reached out to you through Instagram. We saw that you were
LinkedIn first.
Sorry, LinkedIn. Yeah, we saw you were a BME at Medtronic, and here at the BME Life, we just like to know everything about what biomedical engineers are doing all over the world. So thank you so much for accepting our invite. And can you just tell us like a little bit about what you do and or where you are?
Yeah. So I'm a biomedical engineer at Medtronic here in Los Angeles. I work within the diabetes group in sensor R&D. So helping develop the next generation of glucose sensors for type 1 diabetics all around the world.
Wow.
Awesome. And just for a little bit of background, do you want to share a little bit about, where you went to school and where you're from and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I lived there most of my life before college, and then I went to Georgia Tech for undergrad and majored in biomedical engineering there with an industrial design minor. I
Hmm.
wanted to go into industry pretty much since I was in high school, and I wanted to do biomedical engineering. So I did a lot of internship experience when I was in college as well. I worked in the Midwest. I worked at Zimmer Biomet, an
Oh,
orthopedics company in Warsaw, Indiana. And I also worked at Abbott. Actually, they have an office near here in LA as well. So I really enjoyed all of that experience, and that kind of helped me decide that I wanted to come out back here to LA for Medtronic. So.
All right.
wow. Well, you basically, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say right off the bat, you have
Yeah,
a ton of experience. We're not just going to get a little book right here. We're about to get like a full like
the Bible.
10-volume dictionary out of your experience and how you ultimately got to Medtronic. So that's really exciting. I'm really excited to learn more about all the little internships and stuff that you did that eventually kind of brought you here.
Yeah, of
So
course. Yeah, awesome.
sweet.
That
So
really
Mary, sorry.
touches on our next subject, which is, what your undergrad experience is like, because I think a lot of the things that you do during your undergrad really have an impact on how successful the beginning of your career is going to be. So yeah, I mean, first of all, I know that Georgia Tech is known to be a really good engineering school. Was that something that is that why you went there, or what was your thought process like when choosing a school to attend for biomedical engineering?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that it kind of stemmed from my experiences in high school. I think a lot of people kind of realize, they want to go into the medical design field or device field a little bit later. But for me
Hmm.
personally, I was exposed to medicine from a pretty young age. I have family members that are doctors, so I've been gotten hospital shadowing experience. I kind of knew from early on that I wanted to be in the healthcare field. And I just wasn't
Hmm.
sure what application I wanted. I thought maybe going to med school and being a doctor might be a good application. But when I got to high school, I started getting more involved with engineering things. Like I was on the robotics team in high school, and I really enjoyed like just building stuff and problem solving and finding solutions to engineering problems. And so I kind of realized that I wanted to have a career that was like a really good intersection of engineering and medicine, where I could solve problems within the healthcare space and kind of help people improve their quality of life and help save lives. So that was kind of the motivation for wanting to go into biomedical engineering. So when I was applying to colleges, I honestly just Googled top 10 biomedical engineering programs, and several schools came up, and Georgia Tech was one of those. So I had my eye on Georgia Tech for a little while as one of my top choices. So.
No, that's awesome that you did your research, and that you knew about this field so early on, because it really is a new field, one, and two, it's like not a lot of people actually know about it. So, but there's always, someone like you that's just like very passionate from the beginning, and they know what they have to do and they do their research. So that's amazing. And, that's why we're showcasing you here, because we want to show people that, they can do it too. So, I know you mentioned you had two internship experiences during your undergrad at, honestly, two really big companies as well. So, how, what was the process of finding an internship like for you? When exactly did you start and things like that?
Yeah, so I actually came into undergrad as a pre-med student within biomedical
Mm,
engineering. So for a little while, my college aspirations weren't geared towards industry. I actually did end up thinking about doing medicine until I realized that it wasn't really, my passion, and I wanted to go into the industry. So one thing I found was that it was a little bit difficult to get an internship within biomedical engineering as a freshman and sophomore. I think a lot of people
mhm,
have that experience where there are certain classes that you haven't taken, past the introductory levels that you really need. As sophomores, Georgia Tech students, BME students, take a like design course that kind of introduces you to CAD design and the whole design process,
mm,
and even some of the the regulatory related things. So that class was really critical in being able to land an internship, because I was able to talk about the design that I did and the designs that I worked on. So um, I really geared my search towards professional companies kind of later on, after I had already gotten some design experience in my college classes. So that's kind of was my initial experience with landing my first internship.
Wow, that's really good. And no, it's really interesting because at least in my degree in my school, we didn't really do much of like designing. Like we didn't really see SolidWorks. We didn't have any classes on it really until we got to senior design in our senior year. And that's kind of like you had learned it already on your own if you wanted to. But would you say that your degree at Georgia Tech like really emphasized designing programs or other areas of BME? Like, what would you say are the main areas of BME at Georgia Tech?
I think there's a lot. I think because Georgia Tech is a very research heavy school, a lot of the
Mhm.
classes and stuff, they were taught by research professors, and they were very research oriented. We took a cell biology class, and a class where we were in the lab, pipetting things for experiments and things like that. It was very heavy on the biology, chemistry side. There was
Mhm.
there were some engineering courses and design courses, but I definitely would say that it wasn't a strong emphasis. It was very broad curriculum, I would
Hmm.
say. And I
Okay.
think it was kind of up to you to figure out what you wanted to specialize in, kind of
Yeah.
on your own. It wasn't necessarily set out a path for you. You had to. So one of the things you had to do was choose a minor as well, to kind of help
Mm.
specialize. So that's why I did an industrial design minor, because I wanted to focus more on design.
I like how you mentioned that you kind of you build your own path on what you want to do, what you want to specialize in, and a lot of people actually ask us if they should get a minor along with their BME major, and so you got yours in industrial design.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was a good decision, because I wanted something that was a little bit more hands on as far as a minor, and I think it exposed me to a lot more. Like I took a class on prototyping, I took a class on
Wow.
design. We took a human factors class, which I learned kind of about
Mm.
the human side that drives engineering and how to improve that, which I think was really helpful. In the industry as well. So I had a really good experience choosing a minor. I think, and if you're having difficulty kind of figuring out what path you want to take, I think exploring a minor is definitely a great idea, if you're able
Yeah.
to do it.
And first of all, was that like do you feel like that was extra like workload that you had as a student having a minor as well, or I mean, how was that for you?
Well, I was able to fit it in to my schedule pretty well. I was lucky enough to be able to do that. But the thing is, we had to choose a minor, so I didn't really have a choice in the matter. Originally,
Oh,
it was a pre med certificate that I could do, but when I decided I didn't want to do pre med, I had to switch to a minor instead. But it ended up being a great choice, and I guess it's definitely dependent on the situation. But if it definitely is a little bit more work with classes and things like that, if you don't have to do a minor, but if you're able to fit it into your schedule, I think it's something that can be really valuable.
mhm. So then you knew kind of from the beginning, with I mean, why you chose your minor, that you wanted to go towards, like you said, you did prototype and industrial engineering, learned the human factor of engineering as well with BME. What helped you know, like, okay, I want to major in BME, minor in industrial design? Like, what happened in the beginning, whether it was like, it's senior year in high school or the freshman year in college? Like, what happened there that kind of led you this way in the first place? Like, you know.
Yeah. So I mentioned some of my high school related experience that kind of pushed me towards engineering. But even in college, the classes that I enjoyed the most were the hands-on problem-solving classes. Georgia Tech, a lot of the classes are geared towards problem-based learning. So I really enjoyed that aspect of collaboration and the application of the the concepts you learn towards real life problems within the healthcare field. I think that's kind of what pushed me to do an industrial design minor. Is even so with that curriculum style, there was definitely a lot more opportunity for me personally to get more hands on. That's kind of why I decided to choose. And it was definitely like the college experiences that I had and realizing, hey, this is what I enjoy. I enjoy problem based learning. I enjoy getting hands on. I don't love organic chemistry, sitting in class memorizing stuff from textbook. That was just never my personal style of learning that was best. So I kind of geared that towards what I was able to glean from my experiences in college.
Oh, that's great. I have a question just going back to your internship experience. Um, well, more like how exactly, what was the process of you getting them? Did you apply online? Did you like talk to your professors? Did you reach out to the career center? What did you do to obtain your internship opportunities?
Yeah. So at least for my internship opportunities, it always involved talking to a human being. So a recruiter would come
Mm-hmm.
to campus. They would
Okay.
reach out, and sometimes I would meet them at the career fair and things like that. At least for some of the interviews that I got, but for the internships I got, I reached out, to a person and gave them my resume, and they said, "Hey, I'm interested. Can you apply through our link so we can have a conversation?" So I hadn't even applied to the job through the online link. I had talked to that person or interacted with them personally for them to say, hey, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more. So definitely establishing that human connection, I think, really helped kind of set me apart a little bit in terms of the application process.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess we can move on to, you graduated in 2019, correct?
Yes. Yes.
What was your life like as a recent grad? Did you like when exactly did you find a job? How is that process to really landing your first job as a recent graduate?
Yeah, you brought back some memories of just the whole application process. I mean, I had 2 internship experiences under my belt. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, potentially where I wanted to be. But I started applying for jobs, fall of my senior year, and it took a lot of applications to really, land this job. I had been applying throughout the fall, getting a lot of rejections, occasional interview here and there that didn't really go any further. So it was definitely a very discouraging process compared to some of my peers who were, computer science majors and things like that. People that were getting job offers like very beginning of the fall semester. I kind of realized that the application cycle is not, it's not very extremely structured. A lot of companies will open a position and close it within a few weeks.
Mhm.
So it was definitely not like a regular cadence. So it was a lot of applications. I was messaging people on LinkedIn to see if I could get in contact with them. Kind of how we got in touch. Similarly, I would reach out to people on LinkedIn or find their email addresses from their the company format for the like emails like first name dot last name at company.com. I would play around with that a little
Wow.
bit. If I could get in contact with people that way. It was definitely a process that was discouraging at times, but I just had to keep reminding myself, hey, like you'll get something eventually.
I think that's very important, and I just wanted to add. We had one of our friends. He mentioned to us that he sent in, what was it, like 40 or was it 80 applications,
Oh
and
yeah, I
then
forgot. Yeah.
he got one job. Like, out of
Yeah,
all of those applications that he sent, I'm like, but, like, it's true. Like, it takes persistence, patience, what other word that starts with a P? I don't know. But, like all of those things.
Perseverance. Yeah.
Yeah, perseverance. There you go, Sahil. Yeah, like it can be discouraging. I like how you mentioned that. But I mean, you did you have like you had the system down of looking up the name, email, company, and then sending out that email. I mean, how did like what motivated you to be like, hey, you know what? It's up to me. I got to do this. Nonstop. I can't quit.
I think the prospect of having to move back into my parents' house was a big driving factor after graduation. No, I definitely wanted to I had the internship experience. I knew what I wanted. I just knew that I kind of had to trust the process a little bit, and not be outcome oriented because I was like, hey, this has worked before. I've been able to land internships with this process. As long as I keep doing this, something will happen eventually. It's just kind of the mindset I had to have, and I think it's like a a mindset that you need to have, and it's very difficult to maintain that mindset. But I would say you just got to keep applying. Have somebody take a look at your resume. Maybe I don't know. A lot of colleges will offer resume workshops. If what you're doing isn't working, then definitely kind of examine how you're portraying yourself to potential employers as well.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to add your resume. I mean, it was a very robust resume, being at Zimmer and Abbott, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Which are two big time players in the med tech world.
Right.
So do you think that helped you at all?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. I think absolutely it definitely helped with landing a job, but I think you can have the best experience, but you have to be able to talk about it and communicate what value that gave you and what value you can bring to any future employer. Nothing is really guaranteed. I think to be completely honest, I came into the process kind of cocky a little bit. I was like, hey, I have so much internship experience, like it should be easy, and then I found out right away that hey, it's really not that easy. Your resume is in a sea of other resumes. Like you may not even get noticed, even if you have a lot of internship experience. And on that note, I had to start somewhere, right? With my first internship experience, I had none. So making sure that any experience that I had that I could talk about it, whether it was classroom experience or professional experience, was huge because you take the same classes as everybody else. The thing that sets you apart is how well you can advertise yourself and how well you can talk about the things that you've done.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you mentioned that you're really like in a sea of applicants, and that's really true. And I think that really happens in like every industry. So
Absolutely.
one of our questions actually from our followers on Instagram was, how do you make yourself stand out from all those applicants? Specifically you that got chosen by Medtronic. What would you say really made you stand out? Like, of course, I mean, I'm sure that during the interview process, they saw you, they liked you, we can work together. But to even get there, what would you say that the process was like for you?
Yeah, with this Medtronic job, I actually didn't do anything special. I was just fortunate enough to have my application noticed by a recruiter. But for a lot of my internship experience, it was about getting in contact with a person. Reaching out, cold emailing people. A lot of times, I was like I said, there's websites where you can type in a company and they'll give you the format of somebody's first email address. So if you see a recruiter for a position that you're interested in, they're looking at hundreds of resumes. But if you send them a message and they see your name and they're all of a sudden they're looking for your name in that pile potentially, given how that interaction might go or anything like that. So to me, it's always about the human element, right? Even now that I'm in a position at Medtronic, people are reaching out to me about, hey, here's my resume. Can we schedule a conversation? I always try to do that because I was on the other side of that as well. I always try to take the time to talk to people and see what their interests are and what their professional goals are. And I think just the human aspect is huge. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
And
that's
do you
actually
think
something. Sorry, no, I was gonna
sorry.
say that's something that Mary says a lot. Like you have to know how to sell yourself. That's one thing that Mary's big on, and because it's true. Like when you're wanting a job, like why should we invest in you? It's not just like, oh, you're hired, you have a salary. Like a lot of companies, especially if they're companies with great culture, like we know Medtronic is, they're
Yeah,
not just looking for robots to hire straight out of college. Like they want to look for somebody that they are going to invest in, their career and in their life. And that way, at a company in the medtech field, it's a company that's trying to change the future.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
why should we choose you? You know?
Absolutely, and on that note, when I interviewed for Medtronic, my resume is what got me in the door. But when I made it to final round interviews, they flew me out to LA, and I interviewed with every single person on the team that I'm working on now, because they wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that every single person vibed with me, and not just professionally, in my background, but also personally, as well. So you kind of have to be I don't the word's not charming, but it may charming honestly. Not charming, but personable, affable. You have to really be able to connect with anybody on their not just professional goals, but personally as well.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's all really good advice. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I guess, moving on to your life now as a professional biomedical engineer, what has it been like for you? I know you mentioned you work specifically in the diabetes department. What would you say your day-to-day looks like working at Medtronic?
That's a good question. I mean, every day is pretty different.
Mhm.
We have the projects that we're working on are very fast moving, so a lot of times it's coming to work and saying, hey, there's this issue that we have to work around. It's a lot of so I work kind of clinical trial execution, so it's a
Mm.
lot of interesting stuff there. So every day is pretty different. Depending on what kind of comes up on the day to day. But overall, it's a lot of collaboration. It's very teamwork oriented, and just a lot of really good communication. I think is really key to success, at least in my experience.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Adrian. I have a question. Just like, a lot of people wonder, like, when you go into the actual industry, do you actually use things that you learned in college? Is that something like, are there any classes or specific topics or skills that you would say that you use at work that you learned during your undergraduate career?
Yeah, definitely. There were a couple. I will say that not every class is something that you're going to use in college. I
Mm-hmm.
think I took a MATLAB class in college. I think that was really useful in the workplace to do some data analysis with that. And the design courses that I took, the human factors course that I took, things that were really applicable to what I was working on as well. I think the key thing about what college does, even if the class may not directly correlate to what you work on, it puts you in the mindset of problem solving. It kind of gives you put specifically with BME classes, it puts you in the headspace of solving problems in healthcare, and it teaches you how to think to some degree. You're seeing problems that you've never seen before, and you have to use the tools that you've learned to solve them. And I think that in itself is very applicable to the industry. You're not always going to see things that you learned about in school, but the key thing there is utilizing the knowledge that you have to try and solve that problem, whether or not it's something you've experienced before, if it's something you haven't.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's actually something that I also share a lot, I think, here in this channel. Like you're not always going to remember specific details about your classes, but I really feel like biomedical engineering and all the engineering degrees really, they really teach you how to think critically, how to solve problems. And then when you get to a workplace, if you're working in the diabetes department of your if cardiac department or orthopedics, they'll teach you like the technicalities of those areas, but it's
Yeah,
really your engineering degree that really exercised your brain to be able to think and solve problems and just get into this like engineering mindset. And I think it's really cool. And yeah, I
definitely.
really like that you mentioned that.
And I want to take a quick little break here to just welcome everybody who's watching. Thank you guys. And I see two questions here. One of these questions is a little hard to answer, so I will skip over it. I'm so sorry. But we have a funny question here. Or at least I think it's funny. Do biomedical engineer get an FBI background check. So let's hear it straight from the source.
No, not in my experience. I have not had an FBI agent knocking on my door at all. I think it's just a standard industry background check on to make sure you are who you say you are. You have your degree and stuff. They had to verify my degree and call my past employers to confirm my experience and things like that. But that's about the extent of any background check. It's not overly invasive, I would say.
Yeah, just to add to that, I want to say that maybe if you work for a government agency like the
Yeah,
FDA, I would say that they're more like they keep a lot of control on who they let in and things like that. So I would think that maybe if you get hired onto a government agency, then you would
yeah,
get a background check, right?
absolutely.
But yeah.
Cool. And
Uh,
then next, so thank you, Marok, for your question. Next, we have a question from Alexa. And I know you guys, well, especially you, Sahil, right now, describe to us, but I guess just to get like another quick little reminder of what made you interested in BME out of all the majors that you could, possibly get. There's thousands of them. What made you choose BME? And also, and then I'll ask Mary why she chose BME. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I was mentioning earlier, like I wanted to find a career path that was the best intersection of problem solving and engineering and healthcare, because I wanted to, apply engineering skills to help solve problems for people, improving people's quality of life and helping to save lives and things like that. So that was kind of what kind of geared me towards biomedical engineering as opposed to just pure mechanical or electrical. I wanted to be in the healthcare space and solve problems specifically within that space because that was what made me passionate about my future career plans.
Yeah, and sorry, and I think you might have mentioned it in the beginning, but were there people in your family who were in the healthcare field or what?
Yeah, yeah. So several my older brother is a doctor now, and I have several family members who are
awesome.
doctors. I was able to shadow them and go see the hospital and see them interacting with patients and seeing how they were able to do their jobs, and I really like enjoyed the personal aspect of that and being able to help individuals. And I think biomedical engineering you can do that on a larger scale. If you invent some device that really helps people, you can help a large number of people improve their quality of life. So that was what really what made it passionate for me.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's really cool. And so most of your experience are because you're from Dallas, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
When you moved to Los Angeles for college, or did you do college in Dallas as well?
No, I did. I went to Georgia Tech, so I did college
Georgia
in
Tech, sorry.
downtown Atlanta. Yeah.
All right, yeah, perfect. Sorry about I missed that.
No
No,
worries.
it's perfect. So, Mary, what made you interested in biomedical engineering?
Yeah, so I guess my story is kind of like a mixture of Sahil's here because I also had family members, that were doctors, so I was, I guess, always like just like exposed to the medical field, and I was interested in it, but I didn't really necessarily want to be a doctor myself for some reason. Like I just didn't really see myself like just like working with patients or surgeries like just seemed very daunting. Uh, but when I learned about engineering, it was really because of my interest in math and sciences, and then I started exploring the different engineerings that are offered. And when I heard about biomedical engineering, I just thought it was the coolest thing because I always loved just learning about the body and cells and things like that. And then when I realized that I could use all these disciplines to improve someone's life, and like Sahil mentioned, in a larger scale, and I actually heard someone recently say, like, when you're a doctor, you can impact the life of someone, like patient at a time, but engineer, you really can do it in like larger scales, and it's just really rewarding in a way to just be able to say that. And yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah, and just because I think it cut out just slightly. Right now,
Oh.
what you just
Mhm.
said is that a doctor can impact a patient's life, but as an
Mhm.
engineer, you can do that at a bigger scale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Okay, cool. 'Cause I think I don't know if it cut out for YouTube as well, but there was like a little bit of a lag there. No, yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's fine. Yeah.
no, that's awesome. And we have another question here, which you talked about earlier, but I kind of just want to show it and answer it. Sahil, you mentioned you got a minor in industrial design, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I wanted to choose a minor that helped me get more hands-on with design. I knew that I wanted to go into medical device design and development, and so I chose that minor based off of being able to explore that a little bit further.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. Mary, on to the next.
Yeah. So the next question really is to, um, I guess, finalize this like your recent experience. What has it been like now that we're in the middle of this pandemic? How was your job affected? Did anything go online? How is the whole process like?
Yeah, yeah. So Medtronic was one of the companies that was allowed to operate as an essential business since we make medical devices. So operations were ongoing. The manufacturing line was still ongoing, but a lot of the engineers went completely remote. So I've been working from home. However, our jobs do require us to go in to office every so often to run tests and things like that, things that are business critical. So Medtronic was making a lot of ventilators for COVID patients. They upped their production significantly of ventilators. So we actually got access to COVID testing a little bit earlier. I think as sort of a thank you, we got access to a lot of testing and but I want to say that they took a lot of really good steps to make sure everybody was safe. They mandated mask use immediately, and they essentially said that we're not going to ask anybody to come back until there's a vaccine and we can safely resume in-person operations. So they've done a very good job at containing this whole thing within the company, and I think we've all realized that we can still be productive and we can still move things along while working remote, which was. It was definitely an adjustment period at first, but I think we've all fallen into a really good groove of getting things done.
Yeah, that's awesome. And honestly, I want to just shout out Medtronic there and give a round of applause because I saw on LinkedIn that they really kept a lot of their interns and job offers. I don't want to mention names, but I saw a lot of medical device companies canceling internships and job offers and things like that. And all I saw on LinkedIn was people really thanking Medtronic for, keeping their internships virtual, just adjusting, but still being able to provide value and just opportunities to people. So that's really cool that they were able to do that.
Absolutely,
And I guess,
sorry, I was going to say like we our internships were remote this summer. And our team actually had a remote intern, and we were able to work around that and get them projects to work on that were able to be done remotely. And I think overall they did a really great job with that, and they are recruiting for next year's interns as well. So.
yeah,
Nice.
no, that's awesome. Honestly, like big applause to Medtronic.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I just want to second that because I mean, for a lot of people, including Mary, as a 2020 graduate or COVID graduate, I don't know what they're
Right.
calling them, but it's these students are just graduating after 4 years of investing in their knowledge, and they're ready to go out in the world, be world changers like they're promised, and all of a sudden, something like this, unseen, completely unseen, happens and just shakes everything. And so there's been a lot of confusion, especially because, we know, and there's people who message us like, hey, what do you recommend I do? What can I do during the pandemic to still get an internship, to get a job? Is it harder now? And it is, but, because a lot of companies, like Mary mentioned, were temporarily closing, but Medtronic was one of those that kind of just kept, being the shining light in a world of darkness. That sounded really poetic and deep, but yeah, I mean that Medtronic honestly was like the lighthouse, or like just like the light at the end of the tunnel, So no, so yeah, I mean Medtronic, their culture, the company itself, it's amazing, and we're so honored to be able to talk with a fellow Medtronic world changer here. So Yeah.
Yeah,
I also,
just to
yeah,
add a little bit,
yeah.
sorry, Adrian. Just to add a little bit to what you just mentioned right now, Adrian, that a lot of people, actually have questions regarding biomedical engineering and the job outlook. They always ask, is it hard to find a job with a biomedical engineering degree? And we just got this question, so that's why I remembered. Um, but I always tell people like if you do your work during your undergrad career, if you get your experience, if you reach out to people and make connections, you should be fine. I know you talked a little bit or not a little bit. You talked about your job finding process, but what would be your answer to this question? If someone's asking, is it hard? Was it hard for you to find a job? What would be
Um,
your answer?
Yeah, I mean, hard in the sense that it was definitely a lot of effort, a lot of work and time. I mean, applying for a job is
Mhm.
almost like a full time job, honestly. You definitely have to set reasonable goals as to what you're looking for. I tried to balance that with taking classes, obviously my senior year, and that was very very difficult. So to say that applying for a job is difficult and that it's a lot of work is definitely true. And as far
Mhm.
as being able to land one, I think it varies, by person. I think if you are continuing to apply and to reach out and do all the right things, then the hope is that you'll hopefully be able to land a job eventually. It took me, like I said, it took me almost 8 or 9 months of applying to be able to land this job, and I was very nervous for near the end. Graduation was looming closer. I didn't have anything secured, and it was definitely nerve wracking. But I
Mhm.
think if you're willing to put in the work to apply, something will come up for you, and something will happen for you.
Yeah, and that's a really good. I like that you gave us that number, 8 or 9 months. Three-quarters of a year. That should tell somebody if they're graduating. For example, we just got this comment right here. I'll be graduating as a BME 2021. I heard it's difficult to find jobs after graduating. Do you have any recommendations for jobs at entry levels? First of all, from what Sahil just told us, 8 or 9 months. That means either be prepared. Obviously, it's not like set in stone formula, but if you're graduating in May, be prepared to not be able to not have your job 9 months later in, I can't do math that fast, but like somewhere around next March, right? Or
Right.
yeah, February, March. Or what Sahil did is during senior year, actively applying already, starting that search as you're a student. That way, you can kind of have something, at least be close to getting your first job out of college. But
Definitely.
actually, this person, I said she because I saw that little cat, but this person said, like, any recommendations for jobs at entry levels? Um, is your job, was it an entry level job, or how did that work out?
So I'm glad this question came up because I think it brings up a good piece of advice. Something that a lot of not a lot of people know is that a lot of times companies will post jobs at higher than entry level, but will downgrade it to an entry level position for certain
Oh.
applicants if they feel like that's worth. Because I guess the way they do it is they secure the funding for a higher level position, but they can downgrade it if they want. So this job that I'm in now actually was a position that required 2 years of post grad experience. And I applied to it anyway because
Wow.
I was applying to any experienced jobs I could find, and they actually downgraded it to an entry level post grad position for me. So I would say if you see a job and you see it requires 2, 3, 5 years of experience and you don't have that, apply anyway. I mean, the company, the position may be able to be downgraded to an entry level position for you. So that was one thing I think that helped me kind of land this job, is applying to any position I could find that was had any level of experience, that just on the off chance that someone was willing to downgrade it to my level of experience.
Wow. Okay, that's actually very, very insightful because I know that 2, 3 years of experience required. It's like, man, I just graduated. So
Yeah, yeah.
that, that's a really good insight. Mary, did you have anything to add on to that?
No, I think that's great advice, and I actually didn't know that. And I actually one time wanted to apply to a job, and I contacted someone that I knew that worked there and asked them to refer me. And they referred me, but they were going to refer me, but then they said actually they required 2 years of experience, so I don't know. And then that kind of like discouraged me, and I ended up not really applying or being referred. So it's really good advice because I've definitely seen job opportunities that I think of applying, but then just seeing that requirement, I always think, oh, it's probably set in stone. Like they're not even going to look at my application, so I'm not even going to try. But knowing this, I think it's like very helpful for a lot of people. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
And Toyel says, thanks. She really appreciates your answer. So we're glad we could help. And yeah, I mean that was a really great answer. I have another question here that we talked about. I mean, we somewhat touched on, but Esperanza asked, what knowledge that you learned from school are you applying now in your job? Do you want to just touch on that question again, real quick?
Sure, sure. Like I said, I mentioned it earlier, but I took a MATLAB class, and applying MATLAB to my job was really cool. To be able to see kind of the things that I learned being actually applied. So MATLAB, the design courses that I took, where I learned CAD, I learned the design process. And the whole prototyping process as well was really applicable to both my internships and my job. Um, and just to be the ability to communicate well, something I learned in college from problem-based learning classes where you're collaborating with others. That was a big thing. And just like I mentioned, just the whole problem-solving mindset, how to think and how to take what you've learned and apply it to new problems that you haven't seen before, was a big thing for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's perfect. And Mary, anything else we should?
Yeah, no, no, I think we covered, a lot of really good points, and we definitely learned a lot. So I guess just to close up this, podcast episode, would you like to share any like final advice to students or early professionals that just graduated? What would be your best tips to succeed in this industry?
Um, that's a good question. First of all, I just want to say to everybody that's applying to jobs and having trouble, don't be discouraged. Like I said, it took me a long time to land my job, and it's easy to start questioning your own self worth, and saying, why is nobody interested? Why is nobody hiring me? Even though I had came in, I had a lot of internship experience. It took me a long time to land a job, and it made me question, like, well, am I even a good candidate? You absolutely are, and continue to do what you're doing and continue to put yourself out there, and maybe something great will come from it. And Yeah, I guess just for recent grads that are working in the industry, I'm also in the same boat, so it's tough to give advice. But I
Yeah.
would just say just keep the patient in mind. When we design these things, we design them for patients at the end of the day, and keeping them in mind and keeping their needs and their desires in mind is a good way to design products that can really help people. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah. No. I mean, definitely. I think just like Amazon, they're a customer centric platform. I think the best companies are the ones that always have the customers in mind. Especially in the medical and technology field. That's something that's very important to think about. The company itself and also the employees, like individually. Um,
Absolutely.
and so I kind of just wanted to end with one of these questions that look really interesting, that I kind of wanted to ask earlier. So thank you, and Kita, for asking. She says, was there anything that surprised you about working as a BME at Medtronic?
That's my girlfriend. She joined this chat.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's
Awesome.
I legitimately wanted to ask, so that's really
um, I just, man, that's a good question. I think the really strong emphasis on work life balance was huge. I think Medtronic is really good at taking care of their employees. Tons of benefits for employees. We get a lot of vacation, a lot of really great benefits. and just the environment there is very conducive to, hey, like, separate work from your personal life, because I think that leads to better performance overall. And I really appreciate a company being so focused on the well-being of its employees, which they've shown throughout this crisis. But also, even in California, we had earthquakes and fires and things like
Mm.
that impacted the ability to go to work. And we have 30 days of disaster insurance, which is really cool, like something you wouldn't even consider. But they really do a good job taking care of their employees, and I really appreciate the attitude that I've been able to be a part of that culture.
Wait, so I just wanted to disaster. I don't think I've ever heard that. Is that disaster 30-day disaster insurance or
Yeah,
your
so I guess if your location closes down for a disaster related reason, they give you, like, paid time off, which is really nice. We had to actually close down for a day because of a fire that came pretty close to the building, and
Wow.
they utilized that policy, which was something that I really appreciated. Um, so yeah.
no, okay,
Great.
yeah. I mean, that is definitely a surprise. I've never even heard of that. So
Yeah,
that
I mean, neither. So
um, so awesome. Well, Mary, did you have anything else you wanted to add on here before we
No, I think, it's been great to learn about your experience and not only as an undergrad, but also, as a person, what motivated you to pursue biomedical engineering. I guess just one last question from me would be, do you feel like biomedical engineering itself has met your expectations of your degree? How do you feel with it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it has. I think that, I feel like I'm working on technology that really matters and really can help people within the diabetes population. And I think about being in high school and envisioning the future of what I would be doing and working on. And I definitely feel like high school me would be very happy with where I am in my career. So I'm very fortunate to have gotten this opportunity to work within my field. So definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, that's great to hear because, here we want to encourage people to pursue this field. And I know there's a lot of doubt out there. And there's also a lot of people kind of like telling other people not to pursue biomedical engineering. So, we
the
want to
BME
push people
haters.
to do that. But yeah, I think it's awesome to have, success stories like yours and really be able to show people that you can succeed in BME, and it is a very rewarding career. So yeah, thank you,
Totally.
for being here, for taking the time off this Saturday to be here. Thank you for your girlfriend for joining us and supporting, and thank you everyone else for watching and also supporting and learning.
Yeah,
So
thank
yeah,
you guys for having me. I was saying I think what you guys are doing is awesome, and I hope
thank
people
you,
can continue to learn from this channel and what you guys are doing. So I really appreciate it as well.
thank you. It means a lot.
All right, guys. Well, that is the conclusion of the BME Live podcast episode 8 with the amazing Sahil. And again, thank you. And we hope everybody has a nice rest of your day. See you guys.